We'll kick this off by saying thank you to everyone for joining us for the virtual portion of NYC AgTech Week 2022 and for being here for this panel on sustainability, waste, recycling, and circular economies in urban food systems. I just want to introduce myself really quickly before giving our panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves. My name is Sarah Janjua. I am a consultant with AgTech, which is an urban ag, climate smart agriculture consulting firm. And I also sit on the board of the NYC Agriculture Collective. And prior to being here, I was a sustainability management fellow with the Earth Institute at Columbia University. So I'm really honored to be here moderating this panel with these different sustainability leaders. We're really fortunate today to get to learn about sustainability in urban food systems from different perspectives. And with that being said, I'm going to invite each of our panelists to introduce yourself. We can start off with your name, your title, and your organization to get the conversation going.
Okay, I guess I'll start. Hi guys, my name is Albert Lin. I am the founder of VegBed. We develop and design sustainable growing mediums for indoor vertical farms. So our main product is currently the bamboo fiber substrate mat that is mainly used for microgreen production. And recently NASA has been testing out our mat for feeding astronauts in space, which is really cool. And the main mission and vision of the company is essentially to help vertical farms reduce their downstream waste and shift the industry away from non-sustainable growing mediums.
Thank you, Albert. Annie, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Annie Wissemeier. I am sustainability engineer at 80 Acres Infinite Acres. So I work with all of our inventories and calculations and supporting both parts of our business.
Awesome.
I'm Jacqueline Tran. I'm the Director of Energy and Sustainability at the Javits Center. It's a convention center in Hudson Yards. We've been around since 1986, holding different types of events like trade shows. Popular ones are Comic-Con, Auto Show. We recently expanded, which now we have a 1-acre rooftop farm. So we'll talk more about that later. And pre-pandemic, we were the busiest convention center in the country.
Awesome. Thank you all. And Jacqueline, I will start with you. As a former green building consultant, I'm a huge fan of all the sustainability initiatives that the Javits Center has taken on and continues to take on. And there's so many different initiatives we could talk about, but given that this is NYC AgTech Week, I'm actually hoping that you could speak to the recent expansion of the rooftop on the farm and maybe teach our audience a little bit about the circular systems that Javits Center and Brooklyn Grange have worked hard to implement.
Yeah, so I'll just start off high level really quickly about the background that you see in my image there. So our sustainability program started with the 6.75 acre green roof that we have. So when we were able to expand, looking for more meeting room space and really just to put in a truck marshaling facility so that we could be a better neighbor to the community, to house up to 200 trucks at one time, and then have different types of event spaces like a rooftop terrace. We were going to put another extensive green roof on, but then after kind of looking at what was possible, we thought, let's push the envelope and add a 1-acre rooftop farm. And so we got that turned over to us from the design build team last year in September. We had a quick micro growing season of like 20 days. We work with Brooklyn Grange to operate the farm for us. And then this is the first full growing season this year. So up to 40,000 pounds of produce are generated per season. That all goes into the event catering, and then any excess is donated to Rethink Food, to local communities in need, since they have a commissary kitchen that can prepare those meals for those in need. And in terms of the closed loop systems, we have 2 underground cisterns that capture and treat unfilter and pump back all of the rainwater that hits 3 of our rooftops. That's about a 344,000 gallon combined holding capacity. And some of the preliminary calculations estimate that it's probably reducing our need for potable water for irrigation by at least 50%, but we still need to work with Brooklyn Grange to actually measure that and start seeing the actual gains that we're getting from it. And then, just in terms of inputs and environmental stewardship on the farm versus, trying to get the efficiencies down to reduce waste wherever possible. Since this is the first year, we've been having a lot of conversations with the culinary team, the farmers, and then us internally to try to just get that learning curve down and understand our operations and kind of build on that year to year.
That's really interesting. A lot of really great work that's being done. I'm wondering, what sort of produce are you growing on the roof, and in what type of growing systems?
Yeah, we always say we grow anything from arugula to zucchini, because basically anything that we can grow in our region, and that we can track to see like how well it's growing and if it can be received well by the events that want, certain types of menus. And that's why we do weekly walks between the farmers and the chefs to customize the crop plan, identify what is being desired on the sales side for the culinary team for catering. But then also there's the fun, creative aspect of, we're really into cucamelons right now, and we want to do some pickling initiatives with cucamelons, and then maybe that's going to turn into a garnish for, a beverage or something. So there's those types of conversations too. It's really exciting to just kind of see where the possibilities can take us.
Awesome. I think, Annie, you are up next. So as the sustainability engineer at 80 Acres and Infinite Acres, what sort of projects do you work on?
All kinds of projects. So one of the best things about the organization is we're really looking at agriculture from the end-to-end supply chain. So we have everything from the growing to the packing to the transport to the retailer distribution centers. So I get to be involved kind of in any type of project that comes up, being a resource for our team. So talking about different packaging, talking about efficiencies at the farm, how we can improve things from the technical design. But one of my core responsibilities is our greenhouse gas inventory, using the GHG protocol, calculating our scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. We really find value in data and letting data drive our improvements, and not just going in with assumptions, but finding the data to tell us where to go. So we've been working on our first baseline inventory, and now it's really, okay, we have these categories identified. Let's see where we already have projects started and where we might need to focus some efforts. So it's been a really exciting journey. And I think the best thing is what we found is teams are already looking at the things that we know are important. So it's efficiencies at our farm, it's packaging improvements, it's what we buy to build our farms. So there are things that we are already working on, which was really great, showing that our business and our team and our members are already thinking this way. And now we have the data to help model those improvements.
That's really exciting. I'm curious to learn what year you decided to use for your baseline calculations.
So we used year 2021 is what we're looking at. It's when our large scale farm came online. So it's our best year of data that we have available that really models our facilities and our business.
That's really exciting. And Albert, so you are coming into this conversation from a different perspective. VegBed provides, you've created these microgreen grow mats. I'm curious, can you sort of educate our audience a little bit about what the difference is between other microgreen grow mats on the market versus the product that you're providing?
Yeah, sure. So you can think of like what we're trying to do is like one piece of the entire supply chain that Annie's talking about, right? And I love that they're they're focusing on every single piece of the whole operation, right? I think from the experience I've got when I first, was exposed to growing medium as a hobbyist grower, is that like Rockwell was kind of the industry standard. Everybody uses it, it works well. But at the end of the day, it really isn't a sustainable material. So the idea was to come up with something that was better, that we could use. So to this day, it's still predominantly Rockwell and peat. Those are the two things that most people utilize in vertical farming and indoor ag right now. But from my conversations with farmers, even today at the conference here in Germany, almost everyone that came up to me is asking about more sustainable solutions. And I think they want to try to implement that. I think a couple of years ago, it was kind of an afterthought, the growing medium side. There's, all right, let's focus on LEDs. Let's focus on the growing systems, optimize all that, the HVAC system, and kind of like, oh, whatever waste there is, whatever, that's fine, just toss it kind of thing. So there's other materials on the market, coir, hemp, a lot of different materials. But the thing that I noticed was that a lot of what is available is either sustainable but not biodegradable, or biodegradable but not sustainable. And so my idea was to try to come up with something that was both sustainable and biodegradable from a growing medium standpoint. So yeah.
That's really interesting. And you had mentioned that NASA is testing your product for growing in space. How are those trials going?
Yeah, that just kind of came out of nowhere. I had no idea they were doing it. But one of the scientists on that project just randomly emailed me one day and asked me, oh, could we get some more samples to test? And then I asked what they were doing. And then she sent me her research, and they're in kind of like the preliminary phase of figuring out what to even feed astronauts. Because at the end of the day, I don't think they want to be eating prepackaged, like freeze-dried food. And so their whole reasoning for doing this is one, getting better, healthier, nutritious food, like density, nutrient-rich food to the astronauts, but also giving them something to do, right, for like the mental health of the astronauts while they're in space, to like kind of take care of something and have like a routine of checking on the plants and stuff like that. So it was a really interesting project. And the first part was just trying to find something to grow it in that would be suitable for like low gravity or zero gravity environment, but then also something that isn't like dirt where it's going to be flying all over the place into all the crevices of the spacecraft where they can't have happen. So they did some zero gravity like nose dive tests to do the harvesting. So it was pretty interesting.
Wow, that's incredible. That's so exciting. Let's see here. So I'm a little curious about so Annie, this is for you. InFarm just recently released the Vertical Farming Manifesto, and 80 Acres Farms is signed onto that. I'm curious to learn if or how that is going to impact the direction of your work. Like what projects you might, aside from the greenhouse gas inventory that's happening, like how else is 80 Acres and Infinite Acres trying to spearhead sustainability within their operations?
I think the manifesto is a really exciting win for the vertical farming industry. So I'm really excited to hear you mention that. I think it very much aligns with what we're already working on. So a big part of that is measuring and reading the details. It's a lot of being intentional with our resources, and not just the resources of our electricity, but also our raw materials, of our people, of how we think about things. So I think it's very naturally aligned to what we're already working on. I can't think of any specific items that it's going to change what I'm working on. I think if anything, it really helps push the industry to rise to the standard and to really value these things. I think we have a unique opportunity, being a young industry, to build these sustainable practices in from the ground up, versus 20 years down the road trying to go back, kind of like Albert was saying about the waste. We have the opportunity now to influence the culture and say, let's attack these things right now from the get-go, versus coming in and having to correct everything backwards. So 80 acres, we already compost our organic media. So we're already taking steps and strides that I think are very much in line with that manifesto. So I think it's really just another good framework for me to look at in my day job of, am I working on these targets? Am I thinking about these things? And how can I integrate this? How can I educate our staff? I think we have a lot of people excited about sustainability. So it's also bringing value to what people are doing and seeing how they relate to our mission and to the Vertical Farm Manifesto. So how does everyone contribute?
It's really exciting. I guess a question I have for everyone here. So we all are aware sustainability is a continuous process. It's not just in point A to point B. So I'm curious to learn and to hear about what you feel your biggest win has been in your sustainability related roles. And I'm also curious to hear where you think that your company or organization could improve.
I can start. So a lot of people might not know, since we have been around since 1986, and if you've ever visited the Javits Center, we have these glass cubes that are the entrance to our main building. And so we used to be the #1 bird killer in New York City because we had 6,000 plus panels of glass that was very dark and birds could not see. They would just kind of see like a reflection of more sky, more trees, etc. And then New York City Audubon actually sent people on bikes to collect about 4,500 birds every year around our building. And so when we were able to do the renovation and put in our first green roof, we put in bird-friendly glass, and we reduced that collision and mortality rate by 90 to 95%. And then slowly studied the effects of the green roof. And that's actually what allowed us to understand the benefits of green roofs. And our sustainability program was born. And then what we did was kind of utilize that to engage our employees, our visitors, and communicate out. And now we say that we're a model for sustainable practices, trying to put in as many different ideas as we can into our building and how we manage it as well, how we operate. And the fact that I'm, sitting on this panel here today saying that we have a 1-acre farm and all the things that we're doing, I think that's such a great shift in our culture and our narrative of who we used to be. And a lot of people don't remember unless they were around for some of these trade shows back then. We used to have like these diapers because the roof would leak, right? And it would go into the trade show floor. So things like that, where I think it's good to show people what's possible when you do put some effort into changing the dynamic of how you interact with the environment. So that would be our biggest win. And then the second one was
maybe where you feel that your organization could improve in terms of sustainability, whether it's from the social perspective or the environmental perspective, governance perspective.
Yeah, I think for us, it's tough on what we can't control because we are a venue. So any visitor or event organizer that's coming in, we kind of have the building there for them to use it. That's our purpose. And so it's a lot of education, it's a lot of collaboration, and it constantly is changing. And we're kind of gathering in new business today with the farm and like more corporate events and galas and things on the rooftop. And so right now, just trying to get the people who are interested in producing an event to understand that we've gone through this journey and that we want to work with them to ensure that how they build the event is also, in line with what we want. So that's kind of our current work right now.
Okay. Annie or Albert?
I can hop in. So I'm going to expand on what I talked about with the composting, because I think it's one of my favorite examples of sustainability at 80 Acres Farm. So before I was a member of the team, some of our farm technicians identified that we had a lot of organic waste. And they said, we want to compost this. We want to dispose of this responsibly. And they made it happen. So they, in addition to their typical day job, they found the outlets. they went to leadership and they got it approved. So that was something that just everyday teammates decided this is important and we're going to find a solution, and they did it. And when you think about that in terms of being a young company, it really shows the value that our day-to-day employees are trusted, found solutions, and our leadership saw the value. I think that's a really good story. I think our other great win is our use of renewable electricity. It really makes a difference when we look at our emissions. I think it's really important, and it's definitely something that you have to be intentional about. So I think it's a big win for our organization. I think in terms of what we can do better, it's going to sound a lot like what Jacqueline just said of our scope 3 emissions, our supply chain emissions. So we don't have, vendors in our event, but we have to work with different supply chain partners to find sustainable resources. And I actually have to follow up with Albert after this discussion about his product, because we need those partners who are looking at novel solutions like the VegBed to say what is sustainable, what is compostable, what are resources out there. So I think that's something as we grow, we're naturally starting to do and look at. But I think having our inventory and having that data in hand will help us make really intentional pathways for growth.
I love that. That's great. I do have a quick question. So do you compost on site or do you have off-takers?
We work with a third party to do that.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Albert, you're up.
I guess biggest win, it's hopefully coming up soon. So I think one of the important things for me was, and a lot of people asked about kind of the biodegradation rate of the mat, right? Because like based off of biology and just physical properties and what I've read about bamboo fiber, naturally it technically should biodegrade, but I didn't have the actual data yet to prove the rate of degradation. So right now it's at a lab getting that done. And so in the next 30 days, I should have the data for that. And I don't think really any other media company has really released that or talked about their biodegradability. They just kind of say it is. So I think being transparent and hopefully getting some good news and being able to share that openly with the growing community will be helpful for everyone. And then things I can improve on, probably back to supply chain. I mean, the last year has been a whirlwind in terms of just getting the product into people's hands. And like I mentioned, I'm in Germany right now. And so the market here is also starting to try to shift towards more sustainable growing mediums. But at the same time, we are still shipping everything out from the US. And so, shipping small packages to the EU isn't the best solution and kind of negates the whole ethos of the whole thing. So trying to figure out a better way to deliver within the EU region and set up a distribution hub here rather than having to do everything from the US, I think is the next kind of challenge and something that I want to work on to help, reduce the mileage of shipping.
That's really exciting stuff. I look forward to. I'm a big fan of transparency in numbers and having numbers back up claims that are made by different organizations and companies. And so I'm excited to learn more about VegBed lab results. I will, of course, plug agritecture. We did our 2021 CEA Controlled Environment Agriculture Global Census for 2021 with a specific focus on sustainability. And a really interesting finding that came out of the results was that 70% of the respondents who are farm operators, founders, et cetera, is that 70% of them do believe that the CEA industry has been susceptible to excessive greenwashing. And for anyone in the audience who's not as familiar with that term, it refers to using maybe misleading language or information to try to create an impression that a company or a product is more sustainable than it actually is. So I'm just curious, as leaders in this space, if anyone here has an opinion one way or the other on greenwashing and sustainability related communications in our industries.
I'll definitely say, I think it's definitely a challenge, right? I think it's a challenge for agriculture. I think it's a challenge for really any manufacturing organization that makes a claim. I don't necessarily think it's unique to agriculture, but I think what we are doing in CEA, it's really important that we try and limit that as much as possible, and hold ourselves to a higher standard. I would say within our organization, we really focus on having data and data collection. That's one of the great benefits of controlled environment agriculture is we have sensors and data points coming in all the time. So then it's really having the right team on hand to help analyze that data, record that data, and draw the conclusions to help inform the claims. And I really think we put an emphasis on that here. But not every player is going to be perfect, right? So I think it's really just focusing on doing the right thing for the right reasons. And I think that's how we do business. But unfortunately, maybe I'm a pessimist, but I think there's always going to be some bad apples. But I think eventually it's going to shake out really apparent what's going on.
Definitely agree with that. And I think that just leads me to another question. I'm curious how large your sustainability related team is at between 80 acres and Infinite Acres.
So right now, I'm the only person with sustainability in my name or my job title. But I work really heavily with a lot of individuals who I would call our unofficial leads. So I have key partners in our design. So engineers doing the mechanical, electrical design. I have key partners in our marketing, in our communications, in our finance, and work really directly with a lot of our leadership. So while there's not a large sustainability organization, it really goes back to it being a part of everyone's job. We have a phrase that sustainability is the ultimate continuous improvement activity. And that's really been taken to heart by the team. So every member of the organization can have that ownership. And we're working on ways to kind of expand sustainability to our staff and make it more accessible and bring more people in. But that's in the works.
That's great. And then, Jacqueline, I'm curious, how large is the sustainability team at the Javits Center? Because with all of the initiatives that are going on, you'd think like it. Yeah, I'm curious to learn how large your team is.
Yes, I have one team member. She's our sustainability specialist, and she works mostly on food and beverage and waste diversion initiatives, kind of more on the operations side and a little bit on the event side. We were lucky to have 3 interns this summer, which I miss them a lot because they helped us advance a lot of vision planning. We were able to get a lot done that we had on the back burner, but that was important. So we were able to kind of dedicate some time to that. And then we also have an ambassador program with 4 tour guides or ambassadors for our sustainability tours, which I would like to plug if anybody would like to come. So we have one tomorrow, which is a technical tour. It's going to be led by Ben Flanner, who is the CEO and co-founder of Brooklyn Grange. And then we have, that's 2 for tomorrow. And then we have 2 on Thursday for just our regular sustainability tours with our ambassadors.
Yes, I was going to plug that eventually, but thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Yeah. Getting to tour the Javits Center is it's really incredible. And I highly recommend if anyone has the time and can make it. I'm trying to think of, Albert, did you have an opinion on greenwashing in our industry?
Yeah. I think what has happened from what I've seen and like the people I've talked to and some of the early stage startups that are kind of trying to start their own vertical farms now is like the greenwashing and kind of the buzzwords that they use during like VC pitch meetings kind of had made their way continuously down the line. So they're continuously pitching that same kind of narrative. And so they're using this kind of blanket terminology and blanket vision of like, okay, indoor ag vertical farms can do this. It could save 90% water versus that. It could produce 1 acre of, produce, and it's like that same over and over kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you doing? Like, yes, we know vertical farming can solve these problems. They're this efficient, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, are they actually putting those things into practice? Or are they just kind of saying the technology can do it, but what are we actually doing in real life kind of thing? So there's that. I think that's where it kind of diverges, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. At agritecture, we like to say, show us the numbers.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on what Albert said. It's kind of like when we get those words like regenerative or, whatever it is as the deliverable, it almost is, it's not even like a, oh, interesting, like tell me more anymore. It's actually like, actually what and why and how, and give me like all of the facts before I even, open the door to you, because a lot of these technologies can be a little bit kitschy too. So it's almost like you have to be a little bit more guarded because the market's so saturated, which is good, I guess, but also you have to be mindful.
Definitely. I have a sort of, I was going to say this as a final question, but I'm curious to learn, if you had an unlimited budget for your sustainability related initiatives, what would be your dream project that you would implement within your company or organization?
So I'm going to answer, and I have like 6 dream projects listed, but I'm going to pick one. I would love to have a fully electric vehicle fleet to do our logistics. I think we talk a lot about food miles, and I think that would be taking that to like the ultimate win. Right now, price is always a challenge, but I think that would be like a dream project to have that fleet and really have those last food miles be completely electric. I think that would be really impactful.
Definitely. I love that answer.
Yeah, that's really hard because there are so many things. I guess if it's unlimited, then I would do everything under the sun in terms of kind of going back to like, what are the certifications and what are the standards out there that are best practice for every single thing that applies to our facility. And then just kind of like sky's the limit for all of that. And also just education, trying to like reach everyone and develop systems where everybody can kind of plug into our sustainability initiatives for every single facet of sustainability. I'd probably do it like that.
I think one of the things that I want to work on that's not directly related actually to growing mediums or hydroponic production, but it's related because I've had customers ask me about packaging. And I know Annie spoke about like you guys are researching packaging, and I think that's a big aspect where people are still trying to find a solution that really isn't a great one yet. Like the plastic clamshells are kind of what everyone uses. But at the same time, if you're trying to go more biodegradable and getting some like corn-based, clamshell, it still needs to be commercially composted, and you need to have somebody that's willing to bring those things to those facilities. So it is like logistically also difficult to do that. So finding like a sustainable packaging solution on top of the sustainable medium would be like a dream kind of goal, because it wouldn't just be for indoor ag at that point, right? If you came up with sustainable packaging, like literally every industry could utilize that, right? Like hello Amazon, knock knock kind of thing. But so that would be an awesome kind of tangential goal for me. Yeah.
That was my second dream project too. I went back and forth.
It's so hard though, because it's like it's got to withstand travel and moisture and all that. So you got to like balance out the end product. If it great if it biodegrades, but if the consumer gets a soggy bowl of lettuce and the thing's falling apart, like it's just not good for anybody. So it's tough. It's a tough problem.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of problems that we have like you said, packaging in general, that we don't always have a clear, like visible solution. And I think sometimes the general public can get really frustrated of like, why haven't you figured out this packaging? Like, well, right now, every option has a trade-off, right? Like you said, you can do a corn-based compostable, but you have to have an outlet that can actually compost that. And that's not always around. And, you know, part of this panel is about circular economy. So we need the places that can compost it, but we need the solutions to be available at scale and at cost. So I think my poor friends and family hear me talk about this, but things that sound really simple, finding sustainable packaging, it's really not. And it's a really big challenge, and it can have really big impacts. But it definitely takes a team, and not just from one organization. It's going to take a whole matrix to solve.
Yeah, we've been doing a huge educational campaign about that internally. I would say we finally checked the box on that, and now it's going to our event organizers, because everybody wants to do, and this is kind of greenwashing, the compostable plastics, and all of that goes to the Newtown Creek co-digestion plant that actually can't process it. And so, you know, we have to tell them that that's actually not better, and that we can't put any of the fibrous products in that stream either. And so if they want to go disposable, yeah, it's going to be better if you do a fibrous biodegradable product, but it's not going to actually get composted. And so we've gone like into post-consumer recycled, and you get down this little rabbit hole, and it's just really, really nuanced. And so being able to kind of parse that out and go into something that is truly a closed loop system would be amazing.
Yeah, I think you said this, but there's a lot of trade-offs right now in sustainability, and you have to pick what trade-off you're accepting. But I think hearing Albert talk about getting data on your material, I think having more data points and more knowledge is really going to help businesses make the right decision, and also help us, you know, educate our consumers and our teams. But I think right now there's just a lot of trade-offs, right? You can buy compostable cups, but can you process them? You know, or you're buying maybe a fibrous-based solution at a premium. So understanding those trade-offs, but also educating, you know, the consumer or your vendors on why the cost is a certain way, or why this is the material of choice. I think it's a really tough, it's a tough balance.
Definitely is. I want to invite anyone of the attendees, if you have any questions or comments, there's the Q&A box, or the chat. Let's see. I think, does anyone have any last thoughts or any advice? I know back when I was in grad school and I was trying to get into the industry, sustainability in the context of urban agriculture and AgTech. I'm just wondering if anyone has any advice for someone who would be interested in getting into the space. Are there any specific skills that you recommend people focus on, or any, like, do you recommend, do you have any recommendations or advice for people looking to get into roles that you are in as like a sustainability engineer or director of energy and sustainability at the Javits Center?
So I think some advice I have, and I did this personally, was tell people what you want to do. If you're interested in sustainability, if you're interested in agriculture, tell people. And even if you're not working in a role currently, you might find there's opportunities to carve out a project or a network connection or a friend of a friend, right? That's how a lot of jobs come about for people, right? So my last role, I wasn't in sustainability, but my manager worked and helped me find a couple of projects that had sustainability impacts. And it was a really focused thing. And so when I ultimately ended up finding this role, it was a really friendly departure, because he knew that was my desires. So I think telling people is a big part of it. I would also say look into free resources. There are a ton of events like this one that we're at that are free. There's a ton of resources online through, the UN, but like learning the vocabulary, learning what resources are out there. I think there's a lot of self-discovery you can do, but I really think telling people and networking is critical too, and you never know where those connections lie. So don't be afraid to be a little obnoxious.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Albert. I would say go for the experiential learning too. There are a lot of things out there that don't cost a ton that you can kind of experience a workshop or kind of ask somebody who is doing the same work in the space that you want to do, and just ask them if they would be willing to take you under their wing. That's actually how I learned to graft. And I was like, I read this magazine about this guy who was doing it in Vermont, and I emailed him and he was like, yeah, sure, camp out in my yard and I'll teach you how to graft. And then, just little things like that. And you collect all these skills. And then it takes you, to new places where you can kind of discern your next step and just keep trying. And I would echo what Annie said about networking, because those relationships are really important, and they kind of come back full circle. Lots of different synchronicities when you're in the industry. You end up knowing similar people, and you never know what that's going to do for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, depending on which area of sustainability you want to get in, like if you want to get into vertical farming or, water conservation or anything like that. So this will be kind of a broad statement that would suit all those kinds of industries or spaces that you want to get to. But signing up for newsletters, I think in those respective industries that you want to be in is super helpful, because I sign up for all these different agriculture, ag funding, tech in general, and they give you the latest that things that are going on in that space. So you might at this point not know who the biggest players are, what companies exist in these areas, but if you sign up for these newsletters, you'll get an idea of what's going on, what companies are there, who's merging, who's failing, and those are the great starting points to try to reach out and do research on those companies that you want to work for or be a part of.
Awesome. Yeah, I second all of that, between the free events, networking, and newsletters. I love getting my newsletters every day and seeing which company just bought which seed supplier, things like that, and just like vertically integrating. And I suppose if there are no other questions or final thoughts, I will give us 10 minutes back so we can take a break before we break out into networking. So I just want to thank you, Annie. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Albert, for your insights on sustainability and circular economies in our industry. And if any of our participants would like to follow up with you, is LinkedIn a good place? Your company websites? How can people connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn works.
Great.
I second that. So yeah.
Or email albert@VegBed.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And we will see you in 12 minutes for networking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
joining.